Hi, you guys. This is Tsehai, just wanting to talk a little bit about a few bowls in my collection at home and about both some technical things that you might want to think about when you're designing your bowl and also just talk about the aesthetics of a few designs and what makes them unique and interesting. I want to start with this bowl. It was made in Uzbekistan in probably the 1970s, I'm guessing, maybe early 80s, but definitely when Uzbekistan was part of the Soviet Union. And how I know that is there's some really fun details. What, like on the middle inside, I don't know if you can see that gold luster work, but it says something in Russian. So I bought this in kind of a Uzbekistan import store in Istanbul, Turkey. I really love white porcelain bowls, especially bowls of kind of Asian style. And what was really interesting to me about these Uzbeki bowls is they're both kind of Muslim and Middle East turn in sense in Uzbekistan, but also very close to China. And in Uzbekistan, they eat a lot of rice and eat out of rice bowls that like you would expect to see in Chinese cuisine. Uzbekistan is actually, a source of much of the founding of Turkey. So there's that interesting detail as well as like historically Uzbekis migrated to Asia Minor and are so historically very related to Uzbekistanis. So anyway, this is a nice little bowl. One other thing that I want to point out that I definitely have a soft spot for beautiful porcelain bowls like this. I don't want that to influence your aesthetics at all when you notice like, well, everything Sahai's talking about is white porcelain. That doesn't mean you need to have that same aesthetic at all. But I do think it's kind of fun to see some things that I have, but it's also a way for me to talk about technical design issues that you need to think about when you're making your positive to make your bowl for slip casting. So, yeah, really nice bowl. I actually ate out of it last night. I had like this kind of soupy Asian not stool, stew with some salmon and some shrimp and a nice coconut based broth. Um, but so it's not all that different from this bowl, which I bought in Denver at a thrift store. So, but this one's definitely kind of, you know, production, porcelain, nothing really fancy. I doubt there's any part of it that is hand painted. It's probably all decals that are added, but it does have these spots of beautiful blue glaze and then areas where it's pretty much all decorated, and it's decorated everywhere. Down here, the band on the foot, inside even has some decoration. But again, I probably spent like $3 at a thrift store for this piece. Um, and it's a really nice bowl, has a nice foot, but it has some issues with some reasons why it would be a little bit harder than others to slip cast. And it's very open on the inside, so the walls aren't really vertical. They kind of spread out like this. So that's nice. It makes for a good mold, a good shape for slip casting. The outside's pretty nice and open as well, so that's good. But this foot that is really deep and very straight is a little problematic. And I mean, I love it. It's so nice because you can hold the foot while you're eating out of it if you wish. It'd be good for eating out of a bowl at a couch because, the foot almost can serve like a little handle. But it's so deep that I wouldn't be able to make a single plaster mold and expect to be able to my plaster out. As a matter of fact, I think there's a little bit of an undercut. So this sticks out more than here. So like if I was pulling plaster this way, it would catch and rip this off. And so this is probably not just a single part mold. It was probably two, if not three parts. So one side here, and then another side that came out here so that you could slip cast it. Or alternatively, this piece might have been thrown on a wheel. I don't know. But anyway, just thinking about this is something I want you to be aware of when you think about your bowl. So I have two bowls that I'm a lot more certain were slip cast, and I can show you some of the kind of compromises or changes in the design that were made to make them easier to slip cast. So again, this one is very open, so it would be a good one for a shape for slip casting. But then down here, notice how instead of having a deep recessed foot, this one has an indentation and then it's flat, but this is like a gentle slope. This would be a lot easier to make a mold of because it doesn't have that deep foot that this one has. It still has a beautiful foot, but it's not kind of as deep and hard to pull out of plaster as the Chinese bowl from the thrift store. So, however, look at this. See how that comes out right there? If I were to make a single piece of plaster to pull down to remove my castings from my mold, it would catch right there. Because see that little kind of flare at that base? So that is what we call an undercut. So suddenly, instead of being a one-part mold, this is a three-part mold. So one side here, so it doesn't catch there, one side here, and another part just to make that indentation on the bottom. So it's easier to cast than the Chinese thrift store bowl, but it's still pretty hard. Now, I have a bowl that I'm really excited about that I just bought, like within the week. And this one is designed by a design firm in Italy called Seletti, Seletti, I believe. If you should Google them, they have awesome bowls. And I also put an image of one of their bowls in my lecture. So this one's is from the Kintsugi series, and so not because it broke and got repaired, but just as a design feature, this piece is a kind of mimics joining pieces together as if they had been broken in the Japanese technique of kintsugi repair. So you have this bowl, and then this bowl, and then this bowl, all coming together supposedly to repair a broken bowl, but it was designed that way. Now this bowl, I do believe, could be made and slip cast from a one-part mold, so a lot easier to cast. Why is that? Well, inside it flares out, but all the others flared out too, so that's the same. But as it comes down the side, there's no indentation right here that makes it stick out the way this bowl has. That little area right here that sticks out, that makes it problematic for a one-part mold. This one doesn't have it. See how it comes down and it even tapers in a little bit? And then it's kind of rounded right here. All those make for a much easier to cast bowl. And then the inside is indented, but not very much. However, there's one reason why I'm fairly confident this was a two-part mold. So one part of plaster on the inside and one part of plaster on the outside, and then you would pour in here and pull the two pieces apart. Why do I know that? Because this foot, when it was slip cast, if it was slip cast with just a one-part mold, would then leave an indentation where that foot didn't, the slip got sucked into the foot, and then there would be a ring where the clay would be sunken in on the inside. So I do think this is a two-part mold. Boop, boop, pouring from here. All these details I will talk about a lot more when you start looking at mold making demonstrations, and I also demonstrate during class. So now I have a really eccentric bowl form that I really love. It's kind of crazy. It's very geometric. It's designed by Anne Currier, who's a really well-known and been making very geometric sculptural forms for decades. Um, but I do believe, I didn't study this before I started this video, but it appears to me that it's a two-part mold. So this side and this side are two separate parts, but notice how the bottom is completely flat. So there's no concern about an indentation in the bottom that might make your mold multiple parts. And then my last cup is the simplest of all, and it's definitely a one-part mold. So this is from a series that I did called Do Your Own Dishes, which feel free to look it up on my website, tsehaijohnson.com. But here is a very simple solo cup. Bought it from the grocery store. Everything about it is very restrained, and there's no undercuts. So I was able to just put this upside down on a surface, pour plaster over it. Once that's set, take it over, pull the cup out, and then suddenly I could reproduce the solo cup in porcelain very quickly. So the solo cup, or things that are designed with the idea of making just a one-part mold are things you want to think about. Like, it's a lot more complicated to make a 2 or 3-part mold than a one-part mold. So if you feel like you're kind of hesitant about taking a lot on, you're new to clay perhaps, you might want to really think about designing your prototype for your bowl, your positive, to be able to be slip cast in one part. And then, of course, talk to me in class about how to go about making sure your design will accommodate that desire. This is also a piece, as you can see right here, I put a decal on it, and there's also a little, you can see very kind of tiny dots of gold around the top. Like I said, you're welcome to see a little bit more information about this particular series on my website in this series called Do Your Own Dishes. Thank you.